Have you ever seen someone smiling in the spotlight, but deep down, they were hiding something very dark? That's the story of Shyne Diddy Combs.
Sean Combs is a monster.
I want to speak about this now because I've witnessed everything.
I think Sean Combs can get away with anything.
A man who became super famous, super rich, and super powerful. But behind all the flashy lights, the parties, and the music,
Puffy parties, these were the parties that you needed exclusive access to get into.
there was a silent darkness growing for years. And in 2024, everything came crashing down. It all started on a quiet day, September 17th, 2024. Diddy was walking around New York City like a normal person. He took selfies with fans, spent time with his kids, sat by the water in Central Park, and even went back to Harlem, where he grew up. It seemed peaceful, but it wasn't just a day off. Diddy knew something big was coming. He was enjoying his last day of freedom. That same evening, everything changed. News broke out. Diddy was arrested at a hotel in Manhattan. It wasn't a surprise to everyone, though.
Breaking news tonight, Shyne Diddy Combs has been arrested in a Manhattan hotel this evening after a grand jury indicted the music mogul.
The Department of Homeland Security had been watching him for months. Back in March, they had even raided 2 of his luxury homes. His kids were briefly handcuffed. Why?
Sean Combs' luxury mansions across the country raided by Homeland Security agents, and 2 of his kids put in handcuffs for a brief time.
It started with a civil case filed by his ex-girlfriend, who said Diddy abused and controlled her for over 10 years. That case led to more digging, and what the police found over 6 months was huge. They said Diddy wasn't just mean or controlling, he was running something like a criminal empire. So they arrested him and didn't even let him pay bail. He had to stay in jail, waiting for a big trial in May 2025. Now you might think this came out of nowhere, like it was some setup or conspiracy. But in Diddy's case, people had been whispering about him for years. Some said he was scary behind the scenes, controlling artists, being unfair with money, and having weird public relationships. He acted like a big boss who always got what he wanted. But nothing was ever proven, so he kept getting richer, even becoming a billionaire in 2022. That changed when people started sharing detailed stories. These weren't just rumors anymore. They were lawsuits, witness reports, and even police evidence. Suddenly, the happy and powerful Diddy didn't look so shiny. He looked dangerous. People asked, how did he get this way? How did he fool so many for so long? To understand that, we have to go way back. Back to the cold night in January 1972. Diddy wasn't famous yet. He was just a little boy named Sean. His dad, Melvin Combs, was a military veteran who had started dealing drugs in Harlem to survive. That night, Melvin was sitting in his car near Central Park. Out of the shadows, someone came up and shot him. He died right there.
Melvin was on a drug deal, and he was misidentified as an informant and was gunned down while sitting in his car on Central Park West. Melvin passed away January 26, 1972.
No one ever caught the killer. People thought Melvin might have been an informant. Maybe someone wanted revenge. But what he left behind was a family. His wife, Janice, and 2 little kids, one of them being Sean. That little boy would one day become Diddy. After Melvin was killed, life became very hard for his wife, Janice. She now had to raise Sean and his sister all by herself. She didn't tell Sean the truth about his dad's death. Instead, she said he died in a car crash. She thought it would protect him. She didn't want her son to grow up thinking about drugs, guns, or revenge. Janice wanted a better life for Sean. To make things safer, she moved the family out of New York City to a place called Mount Vernon. It wasn't a perfect place, but it was better than Harlem. Even there, Janice struggled. She worked 3 jobs to take care of her children. They didn't have much money, and sometimes the kids had to live with her sister in the South Bronx, where things weren't safe either. There were roaches, no food, and babies crying for days without clean clothes. It was a tough life. But this is where something inside Sean changed. He said that one day, he woke up with roaches crawling on his face. That's when he told himself, I'm going to be somebody. I'm going to own something. I won't live like this anymore.
One day we woke up and there were 15 roaches on my face, and I was like, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna get out of here. I'm gonna be somebody. I'm gonna own something and be able to take care of my family. I don't want to live in these conditions anymore.
That moment, though it sounds small, was the start of his big dream. Janice made sure to raise Shyne with love and values. She sent him to a Catholic school and took him to church every week. He even worked as an altar boy. She wanted to keep him away from the streets, from the drugs and violence that killed his dad. She did everything she could to build a better future for her son. She even got him into a private school called Mount St. Michael Academy, hoping it would lead him to a safe and successful life. But sadly, things weren't as safe as they seemed. Years later, people found out that leaders at that school, like the principal and the chaplain, were hurting kids. They were arrested for abusing students, and even though the FBI was involved, only one boy spoke up. The school stayed mostly quiet about what happened. And while no one knows for sure if young Shyne was harmed there, it's scary to think about what he might have seen or felt during that time. Some people believe that being around so much darkness in his early life changed Shyne forever. They think the trauma, the pain, the secrets, maybe it all stayed inside him, and one day, it started to come out in ways no one expected. As he grew older, Shyne went to Howard University in Washington, D.C. He studied business, but didn't stay focused on school for long. Instead, he started chasing his dreams in music. He got an unpaid internship at a record label in New York called Uptown Records. That was his big break. He started helping artists like Mary J. Blige and Jodeci. Even though he was still young, people saw that Shyne had a gift. At Uptown Records, Shyne, who started calling himself Puffy, wasn't just any intern. He worked harder than everyone else. He helped artists with their music, organized events, and drove people to the studio. But soon, everyone saw that Puffy had more than just energy. He had real talent. One day, a music producer didn't show up, so Puffy decided to step in. He created the song himself, and it became a huge hit, selling millions of copies. Just like that, he went from intern to one of the top people at the company. By the time he was 21, he was the director of talent at Uptown Records. But even as he rose to the top, something strange was happening. People noticed that trouble seemed to follow Puffy. In 1991, he helped plan a charity basketball game in a small college gym, but the crowd was too big. People pushed and rushed to get in. In the chaos, 9 young people were crushed to death. It was a horrible accident. Puffy later said he tried to save them.
I was there with 9 bodies on the ground. Nobody else was there. No police, nobody. Just me and 9 bodies.
Rap stars, the Heavy D and Puff Daddy charity basketball game benefit.
We got a lot of people here dead in the gymnasium, please.
He said he was there, trying to help, alone with all the bodies. But not everyone believed him. Some people said he just ran away. A judge later said Puffy lied about what happened. And even worse, the money from the event, which was supposed to go to charity, disappeared. No one ever found out where it went. Some people started to see that maybe Puffy wasn't the hero he pretended to be. Still, his career kept going. He started throwing huge parties every week called Daddy's House. These weren't just fun events. They were ways for Puffy to find new talent and make connections. But these parties also had dark sides. There were stories of drugs, underage drinking, and strange behavior. Even more troubling, a 14-year-old boy named Usher, who was just starting his music career, was sent to live with Puffy. That's right, a teenager living with a grown man known for wild parties.
Usher was 14 years old, but nothing about him ever seemed juvenile. I was turning him over to the wildest party guy in the country at an age when I still needed his mother's permission, but he went to New York for almost a year. I didn't know whether I was being irresponsible or having an epiphany.
Years later, Usher talked about it. He said he saw things he didn't understand at the time. He looked uncomfortable when he talked about it on TV.
Yeah, but you were 13. What were you seeing?
I went there to see the lifestyle,
right?
And I saw it, and it was, but I don't know if I could indulge and understand what I was even looking at. It was pretty wild.
So nobody tried to, some woman didn't come along.
I didn't say that.
Okay.
I didn't say that. What I did say is that there were very curious things taking place, and I didn't necessarily understand.
Now, would you ever send your kid to Puffy camp?
Hell no.
See?
And even Puffy said some weird things, like how they shared a bed and fought over cereal.
My brother right here from day one, we used to wake up and, damn, pause, but like, check this out. Back in the days when he was like 10 and I was a little bit older, his older brother, we used to fight over the Frosted Flakes. You know what I'm saying? Before pause was invented. But it's my brother for real. We used to actually wrestle off of the Frosted Flakes because he used to always get up early with me. Now he's one of the richest stars in the world. And
It left people with a lot of questions. Why was a teenage boy in that situation? But Puffy's career only got bigger. He found a young rapper named Christopher Wallace, better known as Biggie Smalls. Biggie had a hard life too, raised by a single mom, selling drugs, and getting in trouble. But his music was powerful. Puffy believed in Biggie when no one else did. He signed him and helped him make an album called Ready to Die. That album became a huge success. Biggie was now a star, and Puffy became more famous too. But their fast rise to fame came with danger. And soon, things would take a very dark turn. As Biggie got more famous, Puffy's name grew too. They were like a team, one made the music, and the other made sure it reached the world. But behind the smiles and success, things were getting risky. During the 1990s, a fight was growing in hip-hop between rappers from the East Coast and West Coast.
Their rivalry started out as a friendly competition, but unfortunately, it escalated into something much more dangerous.
Puffy and Biggie were at the center of it. He was only 24 years old. The whole music world was shocked. He had just started, and now he was gone. People cried, they shared memories. But Puffy didn't act the way many expected.
He was absolutely about to leave Diddy. I know for a fact because he told me that. Everybody wanted to leave Diddy. Everybody eventually leaves him.
Instead of taking time to mourn, he focused on making money. He released his own music album just 4 months after Biggie's death. He even said he wanted to be on the cover of a magazine that was first offered to Biggie. Some people thought he was being selfish, using Biggie's death to become even more famous. The album Puffy released was called No Way Out. It had songs with Biggie's voice on them, recorded before his death. Those were the only songs people liked. The rest, where Puffy rapped alone, were not good. Critics said he couldn't rap. Some called him one of the worst rappers ever. But the album still made money, because Biggie was on it, and people were still hurting from his death. That's when people started seeing Puffy differently. Not as a music genius, but as someone who used others for fame and fortune. And it wasn't the first time. Around the same time, Puffy had another young rapper on his label named Shyne. He came from Belize and was super talented. Puffy signed him, gave him cars, a house, and millions of dollars. But in 1999, Puffy and Shyne were at a nightclub when a fight broke out. A man pulled a gun, and shots were fired. Shyne was arrested, along with Puffy and his bodyguard. But here's the strange part. Puffy hired fancy lawyers for himself and his bodyguard, but not for Shyne. Some people said Puffy was trying to protect himself by letting Shyne take the blame. In the end, Puffy went free. Shyne went to prison for 9 years. His music career was destroyed. Years later, Shyne forgave Puffy, but he never forgot what happened. He said Puffy ruined his life. This showed how Puffy treated the young people he signed, not like family or friends, but like tools to use and throw away when he was done.
Puffy has the same responsibility as a teacher or a coach. Shyne was out with his idol on that fateful night. When I put my child in your hands, I don't expect him to end up dead or in jail.
And sadly, this was just the beginning. Puffy's fame kept growing, but so did the darkness hiding behind it. As the 2000s began, Puffy's music career started to fall apart. His next albums weren't good, even though he kept putting famous singers and rappers on them. The truth was simple. People didn't want to hear Puffy rap. They liked the artists he worked with, but not him. Even though his albums sold well at first, it wasn't because he was talented. It was because he had money, connections, and a long list of stars who could help make the music sound better. But Puffy didn't give up. He started focusing on other things. His fashion brand, his vodka business, and most of all, his image. He threw big parties that became famous. People called them white parties because everyone had to wear all white.
Well, I've always heard about the white parties. I think it would be really exciting. We have the Miss Universe and the Miss USA here, so.
White parties were high-profile, lavish events, particularly known for their exclusive guest lists.
I think all the celebrities are already out here, so it's a whole different vibe when you party in LA, because people have like the Hamptons, all that, but we.
These parties were huge and full of celebrities, actors, athletes, models, and even business people. Puffy made these parties the biggest social events in Hollywood. If you were at one, people thought you were important. But behind all the lights, music, and lobster dinners, something darker was happening. There were whispers in the music world that Puffy's parties weren't just for fun. Some people believed they were used to cover up his bad behavior. Rumors spread about drugs, strange things happening behind closed doors, and young stars being treated badly. One of the strangest and scariest stories involved a young singer named Justin Bieber. When Justin was only 15 years old, he became friends with Puffy. Videos show Puffy saying they were going to have a 48-hour sleepover, but he wouldn't say what they were going to do. Justin just stood there, looking confused and nervous. In other videos, Puffy is seen giving Justin drinks when he looked completely out of it. It was weird, it was wrong, and many people started wondering, why was Puffy always around young boys? There were other moments too. Puffy would say things on camera, like how Justin knew not to talk about what happened in Big Brother Puff's house. It sounded like a joke, but it didn't feel funny. Justin has never talked directly about it, but the look on his face in those videos says a lot. And this wasn't the only time Puffy made people uncomfortable. Over the years, more and more people started speaking out. His ex-girlfriend Cassie filed a long report about how he abused her, not just emotionally, but physically too. She said he controlled every part of her life. That report opened the door to more secrets. Soon after, Homeland Security, the same government group that deals with big crimes and terrorism, raided 3 of Puffy's homes. They took almost 100 devices like phones and computers to look for evidence, and in early 2025, they arrested him. He was charged with crimes like trafficking, abuse, and even bribery. The report said he didn't work alone. He used his employees to help him hurt and control others. It wasn't just bad behavior, it was a whole system. By the time Puffy was arrested, most people weren't surprised anymore. For years, there had been signs. People whispered, rumors spread, and old videos started to look strange when watched again. It was like looking at a puzzle that suddenly made sense. All the pieces were there the whole time. People just didn't see how dark the picture really was. Back in the early 2000s, even when Puffy's record label Bad Boy Records started falling apart, he kept getting richer. That's because Puffy was smart with money, at least when it came to making sure he always got paid. He took a piece of every artist's music, even if he didn't write or perform anything himself. That way, even if the artist left or failed, Puffy still made money from their work. This is why he stayed rich even when most of the artists he worked with were struggling. While others were losing homes, quitting music, or going to jail, Puffy kept throwing parties and signing brand deals. He made himself the star, even when he wasn't the one singing or rapping. He put himself in music videos, on magazine covers, and on stage. He made sure people saw him as the face of the success, even though other people were doing the hard work. But deep down, he was just pretending. Still, he kept showing up like a star. He made music videos, walked red carpets, and acted like he was one of the greats. But deep down, he knew he wasn't. He was someone who used others to build his brand. And for years, he got away with it. Then came the case of Shyne, the young rapper who went to prison while Puffy walked free. That story made it clear just how far Puffy was willing to go to protect himself. Instead of standing beside the artist he signed, he let him take the fall for a shooting at a nightclub. He hired separate lawyers, kept his distance, and made sure he came out clean. Shyne lost nearly 10 years of his life, and Puffy just kept making money. Even when Bad Boy Records started to fail, Puffy didn't seem to care about the people working for him. As long as he got paid, that was all that mattered. Artist after artist left the label. Some quit music. Some ended up homeless. Some died. And Puffy? He just kept smiling for the cameras, acting like he was a music legend. But all the smiles in the world couldn't hide what he had done. The truth was out now, and no amount of money or fame could fix it. By the late 2000s, Puffy wasn't known for music anymore. His albums were flopping, his artists were leaving, and Bad Boy Records was no longer the powerful label it used to be. But Puffy didn't care. He had already made millions. He had built a name for himself that reached beyond music. Now he was showing up at fashion shows, running a clothing brand, and becoming a face for vodka ads. He wanted people to think he was more than just a music guy. He wanted to be seen as a celebrity mogul, and for a while, it worked. People kept inviting him to big events. They still wanted to go to his parties. He was famous not for what he made, but for just being Puffy. But as time went on, more cracks began to show. His relationships with people always ended badly. Most of his old artists wanted nothing to do with him. People started to notice that wherever Puffy went, trouble followed. One of the biggest signs of this was how many of his artists simply disappeared. Some had mental breakdowns. Some went broke.
I don't know what's going on. I don't know what the pain is. The pain is crazy, man. It's helping me out though, man. It's making me realize I got a lot to go, man. A lot to go on, man.
Some, like Black Rob, died in sad and lonely ways. It was clear that Puffy had built his empire by using people up and throwing them away. He only cared about them when they made him money. And once they couldn't, they were forgotten. Even though Bad Boy Records was crashing, Puffy's personal brand was still strong, thanks to how much time and money he spent trying to look powerful. His white parties were still a big deal. His vodka deals were still making him millions. He was still showing up at awards shows and giving big speeches. But all of it was fake. The truth was, Puffy had become a master at pretending. He knew how to smile, how to talk, and how to keep people guessing. That's how he survived for so long. But the lies couldn't last forever. When Cassie came forward in 2023, everything started to fall apart. She wasn't just a random person. She had dated Puffy for over 10 years. She knew what his life was like behind closed doors, and the things she said were terrifying. She talked about control, violence, and fear. She said he didn't just hurt her, he planned it. He used power and fear to control her life. That lawsuit was the beginning. It gave other people the courage to speak. Suddenly, the whispers turned into shouts. People started going back through old videos, old interviews, and old photos. They started asking, how did we not see this before? It became clear that Puffy hadn't just made mistakes. He had lived a double life. Now, as Puffy waits in jail, the world is finally talking about the man behind the mask. Not the music star, not the party king, but the real person. And that person, it turns out, might be one of the most dangerous men the entertainment world has ever known. Today, Puffy's fame isn't built on music, business, or parties. It's built on court documents, witness stories, and evidence from people who say he hurt them. He's no longer remembered as a music king, but as a man who created an empire using fear, control, and pain. For years, people called him a genius, but now they're calling him something else, dangerous. Even his own legacy doesn't shine anymore. His fashion line faded away. His vodka deals ended. His label is barely remembered. And most of the music tied to his name only became popular because of others. Biggie, Mace, Mary J. Blige, and more. Puffy just found ways to benefit from their talent while building his own image. But that image is now broken, and the truth is finally being seen. Some people still try to defend him. They say he was a businessman doing what businessmen do. Others say he had a rough childhood, and maybe he was just a product of his environment. But no matter how hard his past was, it can't excuse what he did to others. Pain doesn't give you the right to cause more pain. Now, we all have to ask ourselves, how did we let this happen for so long? How did someone this powerful go unchecked for decades? The truth is, we often believe what we see on the surface. We trust the smiles, the fame, the money. But sometimes, evil wears a fancy suit. Sometimes, monsters hide in plain sight. And Puffy's story isn't just about one man. It's about an industry that allowed it to happen. About people who stayed quiet to protect their careers. About victims who were afraid to speak out. It's about a world that rewards power, even when it's used the wrong way. Now that his secrets are out, we must listen. We must believe the voices that were ignored. We must protect the people who come forward and hold those in power responsible, no matter how rich or famous they are, because silence only makes evil stronger. Puffy once said he wanted to be a legend, and in a way, he is, but not the kind he hoped to be. He will be remembered, not for his music, but for what he did behind closed doors. His name will go down in history as a warning, not as a success story. If this story shocked you, share your thoughts in the comments. Do you think justice will truly be served? Should more people in the music industry be held accountable? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon if you want more true stories like this. Real, raw, and fully researched.